Alright, today we're going to start talking about Safe Start. And when we talk about Safe Start, we're talking about the four icons that are going to be popping up here, which are the ABS icon, the seatbelt icon, and the check engine icon, and the one that's lit up right now because it's activated, your parking brake icon. After you, the way you're going to discuss these items is you're going to tell the examiner, I'm going to now start talk about my Safe Start, and the first part of my Safe Start is to talk about my four icons. You're going to turn on the ignition. Your ignition right now is an accessory to the right, so you're going to turn it off to the off position. Then you're going to put it back in accessory. I teach people to put it on accessory, but you can turn on the whole bus, okay? But you don't want to do that because this bus has certain sequences that it needs to do before you turn over the motor. So I would just put it in accessory. Okay, so you're going to put it in accessory, and it's going to turn on those icons right off the bat. So put it in accessory, and you got your ABS icon, securely attached, no crack, broken, or missing parts, and it's fully functional after it turns off. And your seatbelt icon, securely attached, no crack, broken, or missing parts, and fully functional. And your check engine light, securely attached, no crack, broken, or missing parts, and fully functional. You also have your parking brake icon. It's securely attached, no crack, broken, or missing parts, and fully functional. And the only reason it's on is because your parking brake is activated right now. All these icons stay on momentarily. They turn off. If they don't turn off and they stay on, that means you need to take your bus in for servicing. And those are things you verbally need to tell the examiner. From there, you're going to start talking about your gauges. All right, before I turn on this bus, because you need to turn on the motor in order to talk about the gauges, because you're going to be saying a term called working in normal operating range. Okay, so in order for that to make sense, your bus needs to be on. Okay, so this is the way you're going to explain it when the bus is on. So we're going to talk about your transmission gauge right here, transmission temperature gauge, securely attached, no crack, broken, or missing parts, working in normal operating range. Okay, and on the DEF fuel, you're going to say securely attached, no crack, broken, or missing parts, and is working in normal operating range, and cannot be no less than 1/8 tank. Okay, this is your oil pressure gauge, securely attached, no crack, broken, or missing parts, and working in normal operating range. Your water temperature gauge, securely attached, no crack, broken, or missing parts, and working in normal operating range, and so on and so on. But I'm going to turn on the motor because in order to have this discussion, the motor needs to be on. So you went from your icons, which I showed you how to do by turning the ignition to off and then back to accessory mode to activate them. After you do that and discuss that part, then you go to your gauges, and in order to talk about your gauges, your motor needs to be on. So we're going to go to the ignition, turn on the motor. Okay. Close this door so a little bit of light in here. All right. So my transmission temperature gauge, securely attached, no crack, broken, or missing parts, and working in normal operating range. My DEF fuel gauge is securely attached, no crack, broken, or missing parts, and working in normal operating range, and cannot be no less than 1/8 tank. Your water temperature gauge is securely attached, no crack, broken, or missing parts, and working in normal operating range. My oil pressure gauge is securely attached, no crack, broken, or missing parts, and working in normal operating range. Your RPM gauge is securely attached, no crack, broken, or missing parts, and working in normal operating range. Your miles per hour gauge or your speedometer, working securely attached, no crack, broken, or missing parts, and working in normal operating range. And your voltmeter, oh shoot, sorry, your voltmeter, come on, focus. Your voltmeter, securely attached, no crack, broken, or missing parts, and working in normal operating range. And your fuel gauge is securely attached, no crack, broken, or missing parts, and working in normal operating range and filled to an adequate level. Your primary and secondary air tank gauges are securely attached, no crack, broken, or missing parts, and working in normal operating range and filled to an optimum level of 120 psi. I know that because I heard my Governor Perch outside. After you finish that, that is your safe start. You will tell the examiner now you're going to start your first air brake test. You're going to start your air brake test, and the first part of your air brake test is to test for any air leaks. Okay. Now, when you do the first part of your test, it's very important that you remember the steps. There's 4 steps. Okay. Number 1, turn off your engine. Number 2, put it back in accessory. Okay. And the reason we put it back in accessory because we want all the gauges to be working when we do this air brake test. Okay. Number 3, disengage your parking brake. That's number 3, step number 3. Disengage it. And you do that by pressing it. Okay. At that time, it'll release your brakes, and the only thing holding you from moving is the chocks outside. All right. Number 4 is, and you got to wait for this thing to stop hissing. Okay. You cannot move forward on your steps until this thing stops making that hissing noise. Okay. Number 4, step number 4, the service brake. Press on it, and you're watching your primary and secondary air tank gauges stabilize. Do not say anything until you stop seeing those needles move. That should take 5 seconds. Okay. Once they stop moving, then you can verbally start discussing the first part of your air brake test with your examiner, and you will tell them, now I'm going to press on my service brake, and I'm going to watch my primary and secondary air tank gauges to make sure that they do not drop more than 3 psi in 1 minute. Now, if you don't have a watch, you can tell the examiner, can you please kindly take time for me, because I don't have a watch, but I have a watch, so I'll take time. So you'll wait for 60 seconds. Okay, and I'll take that time right now. 16. And during that time, you're looking at your watch. You're making sure that those 2 needles, this one and this one, the primary and secondary, do not move more than 3 psi. You're also looking at your watch. Also, you want to use 1 foot, not 2 feet on this service brake. You use 2 feet. Your examiner is going to fail you on this test. They don't want to hear any hissing coming out of the governor. None of that. Okay, we're almost there. And time. It's been 1 minute, and your primary and secondary air tank gauges did not move more than 3 psi. Therefore, I have no leaks in my air brake system, and they are fully functional. When you say that, you can let go of your service signal. Okay. Now you're going to, and that's the first part of your air brake test. That needs to be on point, because if you do not do it right, if you do not explain it right, everything else will domino effect. Like you'll start realizing in one of the steps that you skipped something. So that first stop and that first session of your air brake test it's crucial that you get that right. So the first part is checking for air leaks. The second part is checking your warning system. The third part is checking your spring brakes. The fourth part, you're going to have to turn on your engine and repressurize your primary and secondary air tank back to 120 psi, because you won't have any pressure in your tank by the time you get to the third one, or you finish the third session. Okay, the fourth one is testing the holding power of your parking brake. And the fifth and final one is testing the service brake to make sure it stops the bus when you move 5 miles per hour. Okay, so back to the second part of this session, testing the warning system. So your primary and secondary air tank gauges have a warning system. So you're going to tell your examiner, I'm going to test for my warning system, which is your second part, right? I'm going to fan my service brake or pump, whichever one you can remember, fan my service brake down to 60 psi. Okay, at 60 psi, my warning system should activate, and you'll see a red light on your primary and secondary tank gauges, and you'll also hear followed by a warning buzzer or a warning sound. Okay, so let's do that. So I'm gonna start fanning. So now you're starting to see my gauges drop. And there you go.